Resourceful Designer, episode 339, Accepting Credit Card Payments.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now your host, whose father taught him that if you're asked to do something, you might as well do it right. Mark Decote.
That's right, Wayne. As my father said, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right. There's no sense doing a half-assed job or just enough to get it by. Do the job the proper way the first time, and either you won't have to worry about it again, or whoever you're doing the job for will appreciate you all the more for it. And I think that was sage advice. One of the many that my dad instilled in me over the years. Anyway, before I go any further, I just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge one of my listeners. With a quick shout out to Lorenz, I just want to say thank you for all the support over the years. Lorenz has commented and liked on just about every social media thing I put out. He's always one of the first ones to acknowledge something whenever I release it. So I just want to say thank you, Lorenz, for your support over the years. It's greatly appreciated. Now, today I want to talk about accepting credit card payments. Now, if this is something you already do, you go ahead and skip this episode. That's fine. Although you may learn something, I don't know. I'm going to give you some ideas and that, so you may want to stick around. But I wanted to talk about this because earlier this week, I received an email from Phil. Phil sent me an email, first of all, just thanking me for the podcast and telling me how much the podcast has helped him as he's making the transition from working for an employer to he had started doing some stuff on his own, started his own business on the side, and now he's taking it full time. In his thanking me and all that stuff, he does mention that he has one client who was asking him to pay by credit cards, and he wasn't sure how to go about doing that, having never done it before. Now, this is one of those things that, you kind of take it for granted. I've been accepting credit cards for years, and to me, it's not a big deal, but sometimes you forget that for somebody who is not used to doing that, it can be quite the endeavor to try to figure out exactly what you have to do if you want to accept credit cards from your clients. Now, the first thing that I should touch on is why you should be accepting credit cards from your clients. Well, the main reason is simplicity. Some clients just find it a lot easier to take out their credit card and pay that way. They want to be able to pay online. They get your invoice and they just log on and pay it. It's a proven fact that invoices get paid much faster when there's a credit card payment option involved. In fact, it's funny. I've sent out invoices, and by the time I'd sent out multiple invoices, and then I'd go in and I'd check my system to make sure all the invoices had gone out, and I'll look and I'll say, well, one of them's missing. I'm sure I sent it. I remember sending that one. And I'll look, and it's the reason it's not listed in the list there is because it's already been paid. The person received the email, paid it within 2 minutes of receiving it. So by the time I went to check all the outstanding invoices, that one wasn't listed anymore because I'd already received the money. And that's just one of the reasons why to accept credit card payments. It's easier if you're going to do recurring payments for anything, like I offer website maintenance and hosting plans. And that's something you're going to want to do on credit card because it's every month. You don't want to have to send an invoice out to a client every month and then them have to send you a check or whatever, transfer, whatever they do. It's a lot simpler to do if you can accept credit card payments. And in my case, with podcast branding, my other business that I do, that one there, I kind of productized it, meaning clients pay me up front. They're placing an order for a specific product, which happens to be artwork, but they pay me up front. They go through, they fill out their order form, they enter their credit card, they pay me. And that's how I find out that I got an order is when I get paid, which is great. But I couldn't do that without credit cards. Now, don't get me wrong. I love accepting credit cards, but I much prefer receive an e-transfer, an internet or Interact transfer, or a check from a client. A lot of my local clients still pay me by check. And I love that because there's no additional fees. I don't lose anything. There's no transaction fees. There's no credit card fees. If I send somebody a bill for $1,000, I'm getting $1,000 in my bank. Where with a credit card, if I send somebody $1,000 bill, what ends up in my bank will be 980 some or 990 some dollars. I don't know the exact percentage, but that's just something that you have to take into consideration if you are using credit cards, that there will be an additional fee. And to some people, that is a deterrent. They don't want to accept credit cards because of those fees. Well, if that's the case, the easiest thing to do is just raise your rates. If you're quoting on a job and you think that there's a chance the client pays by credit card, add a little bit onto the job. Instead of charging them $1,000, say the job's going to cost $1,020 or $1,050, enough to cover whatever extra charges there are from the credit card. I see so many people hemming and hawing about, all the fees, the bank fees and the credit card fees that I have to pay. But if you incorporate it into your pricing, then what's to worry? And don't forget that all these fees that you pay, whether it's a credit card fee or a bank fee or whatever, all these things are tax deductible. They're part of running your business. It is an expense. So if you charge somebody $1,000 and they take off, I'm just going to use an arbitrary number, they take off $20 in fees, well, that $20, you can claim that as an expense because you had to pay those fees. The client's not paying them. You're paying them, so those fees are tax deductible. So keep that in mind. Now, if you do want to set up an option for credit cards, say this is something you're not already offering and you decide you want to start accepting credit cards. To me, and I could be wrong in this is just my limited knowledge about it, but to me, the easiest thing to do is to set up a PayPal account. PayPal allows people to pay by credit cards. You can set up an account very easily and start accepting credit cards right away. You just send them an invoice via PayPal. When they receive it, they have the option of paying via their PayPal account if they already have a PayPal account, or they can pay via a credit card if they don't have a PayPal account, or they can pay by credit card even if they do have a PayPal account, but the option is there from them. Then the money goes into your PayPal account, and then you can leave it there and pay for stuff out of PayPal. I have a PayPal account and I accept some money through there. And sometimes I'll have a balance there. And for example, when I pay Wayne Henderson from MediaVoiceovers.com, the guy who does my voiceover work, I just ordered a new batch from him and he sent me an invoice. Well, I had enough money in my PayPal account that I was able to pay him. And the money that's in that PayPal account came from clients that were paying via credit card that just, this is the way they wanted to set up. So I did it that way. And from some other things, I get other money that gets sent in through PayPal. So the money that sits in the PayPal account, you can use it to pay other things like I did with Wayne. And you also have the option to connect it to your bank account and transfer the money or withdraw the money to your account. And it'll automatically, PayPal will automatically do whatever conversion to your currency. So in my case, a lot of the money I receive in my PayPal account, most of the money I should say, is in US funds, but I'm in Canada. So whenever I withdraw the funds, it'll tell me you're withdrawing, say, $100 American. Well, that'll put whatever, 120 some dollars into your bank in Canadian funds. It'll do the currency conversion for me, which is very convenient. So in my opinion, PayPal is the easiest way to set it up. If you're going to do it on a one-time fee, maybe you only have the one client that wants to pay you by credit card, or maybe it's a one-off project that they want to pay by credit card. Just set up a PayPal account and send them an invoice through PayPal, let them pay it, and then either transfer the money to your bank or leave it in your PayPal account to pay for other things. But if you want to do this on a regular basis, there are other options you can use. One is to use a popular kind of accounting program. I know a lot of people use something like FreshBooks or QuickBooks, and there's lots of other ones out there. And a lot of these will accept credit card payments. Some of them will do it through Stripe. Some of them will do it through, there's another one called Square, and there may be other options as well. And there's going to be a fee involved with that, of course. But those things allow you to create and send the invoice and get paid. They monitor things. Some of them will keep sending reminders to clients, which is great. So if the client doesn't pay in 7 days, 14 days, a month, they'll get reminder emails telling them that, oh, this bill is outstanding. Do you want to pay? Here's a button. Click here and pay with your credit card. So they make it very easy. Now, of course, if you're using something like FreshBooks or QuickBooks, there is a fee for using the software. It's a subscription, I believe. I don't use either of them, but I believe it's a subscription. You pay monthly for the use of that software, and it keeps track of all your bookkeeping. You can also do some other stuff in there. I'm not 100% sure, but that is an option using something like that. Now, I did mention Stripe. Stripe is what a lot of these accounting softwares connect to. They connect and accept payments through Stripe. But what a lot of people don't know is you can actually go to Stripe yourself and create an account. And in fact, that's how I do a lot of my billing. My recurring billing, I actually like doing it through Stripe more so than my accounting software. I set up what's called subscriptions in Stripe. So for my monthly website hosting and maintenance program, I set them all up through Stripe, and it just bills the credit card. And it doesn't even send them an invoice for them to pay. What happens is that once the credit card's on file, it just automatically deducts that amount from the credit card every single month, and it collects it into Stripe, and then after a couple of days, it gets transferred to my bank account. So it's very, very easy. I set all my recurring payments up through Stripe. I find it very easy to set up. They've got a great dashboard with all sorts of stuff to monitor and keep track of things, and it's very easy. Now, for normal invoicing, like if I create a project, I build a website, I design a logo or whatever, I use Wave App. It's at waveapp.com. They do have a free version, and that's what I'm using. So I'm not paying a monthly fee for my accounting. Now, they do have a paid version that offers some extra services, but for what I need, I just need something to be able to invoice and to be able to collect money. And the free version will do that. Now, of course, they take a percentage of it. So you're paying a small percentage to Wave, and you're paying a small percentage, or part of that percentage is for Stripe. And that's just part of doing business. It's part of my expenses. And it's to facilitate, to make it easier to accept payments, especially if you're doing international, because now I can invoice somebody in Canada and I could tell them, pay me in Canadian funds. When I send the invoice, I indicate that this invoice is in Canadian funds. And when they click the pay with their credit card, it's being paid in Canadian. Or if I have an American client, I could tell them this invoice is in US funds, or in, I guess you can do other funds as well. I only bill in US. So if you happen to be in Europe or in Asia or in Australia, I'm billing them in US funds. So I'll create the invoice in US funds and send it to them. And then once again, once it gets paid, it gets transferred to Canadian funds for myself when it transfers to my bank. So it's actually very easy to set up. You can use something like, as I said, you can go to Stripe. Stripe doesn't cost you anything. It's free to set up an account. There's no monthly or recurring fees other than a percentage of the money you're collecting. And as I said, I use Wave App at waveapp.com. And that one there, again, it's free. That was after I had used for years. When I started my business, I was using a software from Market Circle called Billings. That's all it was. It was called Billings. And I loved it. The software did everything I wanted it to do. I absolutely loved it, except it did not accept credit card payments. So when it came time for me to go international, because when I was using Billings, most of my clients were local. And at that time, if they wanted to pay by credit card, I'd just say, sorry, I don't accept them. And you'd have to send me a check. Now, back then, a lot of people were writing check. Today, in 2024, as I'm recording this, there are a lot of people who don't write checks anymore. They don't even have checks if they needed to write them. So it's a different world than it was 10, 15 years ago. So eventually I ended up buying a software. I bought something off AppSumo. I remember the software was called Billy App, and Billy was an invoicing app, and it was great. I used it for a bit, and then they got sold to another company called Easy Billing 360. And they made some improvements on the software, and it was great. I loved it. They eventually rebranded to Billways, and they didn't change the software. They just rebranded and changed the interface, the look of the interface, but it still was the exact same features and everything. And then a year or two after that, they decided to shut down. They sent a notice saying that as of whatever date, you would no longer be able to use the software. And at that point, I asked around, and that's when I found out about Wave or Wave App. I think people just call it Wave, but I found out about Wave and looked into it because I was looking into FreshBooks and QuickBooks and all the other ones. There's Honey and there's Bonsai, and there's a whole bunch of invoicing apps made specifically for freelancers and people like us, design business owners, solopreneurs. But Wave just seemed to offer a lot more, and it was free. And unlike these other ones, which were inexpensive, there was no recurring payment, Wave has been around for years. So I know it's not a new thing because free is never a good business model. Most businesses that offer free things end up closing eventually. But in this case, Wave, they had been doing this for a long time. So I had confidence in them and I signed up and I have no regrets. So all of this just because Phil sent me an email and said, he doesn't know what to do. He has a client that wants to pay him by credit card and he didn't know how to go about that. He thought he'd have to go through his bank and set up a merchant account and all sorts of stuff, which can be very, very complicated. But no, you don't need any of that. If it's just a simple here and there, PayPal account will do great for you. Or you can set up and do everything through Stripe. Now, Stripe is not as I said, it has a good dashboard that shows you things, but it's not a very good user interface because it's not meant for that, but even though you can use it for that. And that's why a lot of these other softwares, such as Wave, I use Wave for all these other things. Well, Wave is paid or connected through Stripe. So when somebody makes a payment through Wave, it's actually going through my Stripe dashboard. And you do, if you're signing up for Wave, you do actually have to create your own Stripe account in order to connect them. But if that's the case, just go directly to Stripe if you want. And I know there's lots and lots of other options out there. You ask a dozen designers, you're going to get 6 or 7 different options that they're using in order to do their invoicing. But all of this to say that if you want to accept credit cards, and if Phil is asking, I know that there must be lots of other designers out there that are thinking the same thing. How do I accept credit cards? I don't know what to do. So that's what I wanted to share, is that it's not hard to do. Very easy. A PayPal account, a Stripe account. You can set up a free Wave account. And all of these will allow you to accept credit cards. And yes, you're going to have to pay a fee. There's going to be a service charge for them. And that's the only thing you're paying. That's how they make money, is every transaction. They take a small, like 1 or 2% from the transaction. And that's how they stay in business. That's how they can offer these free businesses. But that small percentage that they do take away, you can compensate for that by raising your rates or including it in your price. Now, I will warn you, the one thing you cannot do is say here, or cannot do. It's bad etiquette to say, here's your invoice for $1,000. Oh, if you want to pay by credit card, then please add 2% or 3% onto the invoice. So it'll be $1,030 if you want to pay, and that covers the credit card fee. I personally think that's bad etiquette. It's bad practice. It used to be illegal. Visa and MasterCard, the two major credit card companies, used to say you were not allowed to do that, but they changed several years ago where now if you want, and some businesses will actually do that, there's an additional fee if you pay by credit card. What some people do is they'll say, here's the invoice for $1,000. If you want to pay by check, you can take 2% off, like deduct 2% and send a check in or something like that. Again, to cover the fees. In my opinion, raise your rates. If you really are worried about those small fees, raise your rates to cover for them and just let the invoice go through. You don't have to tell the people that they're paying extra or they're saving or anything like that. Just here's the price. This is what you pay me. You get your money and the company gets their small percentage. And that small percentage at the end of the year, when it comes tax time, you get to claim it as a business expense. So that's what I wanted to cover today. A very simple topic, but if Phil was wondering about it, I'm sure many other people are. And I thought, I should make an episode about it and just share how simple it is to accept credit card payments from your clients. And that's the topic for today. Now, before I go, if you have any questions, like Phil had that question, the best place to ask is within the Resourceful Designer community. I'm always answering, we are always answering each other's questions. Anytime something comes up, somebody posts it there, somebody has an answer for them. And it is so helpful because it's one thing to post a question somewhere and not know who's answering, not know if the person that's answering your question knows what they're talking about. But in the community, we're a small bunch of designers that it's very easy. We get to know each other. and we get to trust each other. So when somebody like Brian or Mike or Jan or Beth or any of the other people in the community, any of them says something, you know these people and you know you can trust what they have to say. And that's the power of being in this community, is these people, you get to know them, you get to trust them, you get to accept their opinions, and you get to help them. If they ask something that you know the answer to, you can help them. And sometimes people just don't know the answers to certain things. And we'll discuss them and we'll have conversations and talk about these things and try to figure things out. You know, we're talking about AI, we're talking about acquiring clients, we're talking about contracts, we're talking about all sorts of stuff within the community and helping each other. And we would love for you to be a part of that. If you are running your own design business and you want people to help bounce ideas off of, to be accountability partners, just people to talk, to share, to ask questions, to rant with. Oh, the ranting. That's some of the most fun parts of the community, is when people rant about what a client did or what somebody else did or something. If you want to be a part of a community like that, of great designers that are all invested in growing their design business, then head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/community and join today. So that's it for this episode. I want to thank you very much for sticking around, especially if you already do accept credit card payments and you didn't really need any of this information. Thank you so much. And if you don't already and this information was helpful to you, thank you as well. And thank you to Phil for submitting his question, or just for the lovely email he sent telling me how much he values the podcast. And once again, Lorenz, thank you for just all the support you've given me over the years. It is so much appreciated. I know I thank you sometimes online, but I just wanted to give you a shout out on the podcast and say thank you for always acknowledging everything I put out there. You're usually the first person to do so, and I notice. I do appreciate it. So that's it for me. Until next time, I am Mark Dacote, wishing you all the best with your design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.